Welcome to the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bold Book of the Day. My name is Dr. Denise Nicholson, and this podcast is for anyone looking for inspiration. Today, we have, oh my God, the wonderful, the beautiful Sasha Farrell, the author of Chasing Love, a story of self-sabotage. Welcome, Sasha.
Thank you so much for having me, Denise. I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everybody.
Well, this is amazing. I haven't spoken to you in a while because your book has been out for quite some time now. How has it been going and how's your life been going? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's definitely been a long journey since I put this book out. It's been like 2 years now, I think, since I launched it and everything. And yeah, it's definitely been. I mean, we can get into it a little bit more as we go, but it's been definitely a ride. Very exciting, challenging, growing ride.
Amen.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so tell me about your story. Why did you feel compelled to write this book?
Yeah, great question. It's really funny because I never thought I would actually write a book, especially one so vulnerable and personal to the things that really I feared the most and that I kept internalized the most throughout my life. And I remember, growing up, just really, really struggling with a lot of things in my life. And I didn't really have anybody close in my life to share with what I was going through, my feelings, my thoughts, my experiences. It wasn't until I was about 14 years old that I made my first real friend. And I remember one day we were sitting and talking, and he was just asking me questions about my life. And as I was telling him different things, he was sitting there just like jaw dropped. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, Sash, like, that's not normal. Like, that's a lot." He's like, "You should write a book one day." And it
Oh, wow.
planted this seed. And I was like, really? Like, I just thought this was how things were. I thought that was just, life, how life was for everybody. But it did. It planted a seed, and years went by, and things. I'll talk a little bit more as about it as we go. But things continued to happen and spiral out of control in my life. And I remember just getting these insights like, this is something important that I'm going through that other people need to learn from as well. Like, this isn't normal. It's traumatizing. It's painful. It's something that other people are going through that I have the ability to share and help people grow through. Even though I wasn't necessarily growing through it at that time, it was like God was showing me little insights, like, I'm going to use you in these areas. So fast forward a number of years again, and I was out in Las Vegas, and talk about divine intervention. I was in the bathroom of this large hotel, and I walk in, and this woman, she's looking at me through the glass at the mirror. And we make eye contact just through the mirror, and she turns around, and she just had this like divine presence, which now I know was literally like the Lord upon her. And she just looked at me with this soft smile, and she's like, "Young woman, you have a story to tell." And I was like, "Oh, it's funny you say that because I have this idea for this book." And she's like, "I know, write it. There are people all over the world that need to hear your story." And boom, something just ignited in me. I'm like, wow, like, that was not me. That was not, there's no way she could have known that. Like, that, it was like God was using her to speak right to me. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I had this very strong sense of like, I need to write about my experiences. I need to, number one, confront them. I need to make peace with them. I need to learn and grow from them. And I need to allow myself to be used to help other people through them before I can move on to this next stage in my life. It made no logical sense. It was just this sense that I had very strongly. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and it took me a long time to get everything out. But when I did, I had this manuscript there, and I was just like, okay, it's out. I feel good. Don't know if I'm ever going to do anything with it, but it brought me a lot of accountability and perspective, and it helped me to grow a lot through that. And then it wasn't until I met you, Denise, in John's group, in our mastermind, and John, pushing us to really go after our goals and dreams, that I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I need to just, as scary as it was to put out something so vulnerable, I'm like, no, like, it's not about me. It's not about what people think. If it can be used to help somebody, that's all it's about. And so I reached out and connected with you, and boom, you were the most amazing person I could ever ask to guide me through that process. And together we made it a reality.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your story. I know your message. I know your story. But tell the world, what were you going through as a young girl, growing up in Canada?
Yeah. So, um, you know, from the time I was really young, I struggled in a lot of different areas. I didn't really realize a lot of it in the beginning, but we were very, very poor. My mom struggled a lot. She did her best. She was an amazing mom. She is an amazing mom. But we're on government assistance. We're kind of forced to live in areas that we're exposed to a lot of things that kids really shouldn't be exposed to. I got bullied a lot at school. I had a lot of challenges at home. My mom struggled with, her own issues. And it just caused me to spend a lot of time on my own. I felt very alone. I had no sense of identity. I felt very outcasted and rejected. And a lot of the things that I was exposed to in those environments really shaped my idea of what life was. So I saw a lot of violence. I saw a lot of drug use, sexual activity. I saw abuse. I saw women getting beat up in the streets. I saw just a lot of crazy things that I shouldn't have at a young age. And so what it did is it molded my perspective of what reality was and of what I was
Mm-hmm.
capable of in life. The biggest thing that impacted me in that time was my idea of what a man was, because my dad
Mm-hmm.
was not consistent in my life. I didn't see him, I'd go there every other weekend, and it wasn't overly consistent. I felt very
Yeah.
disconnected from him. So what I saw was these kind of thugged out guys. They were, the street mentality, the gang mentality. They were obnoxious and violent and, just that whole demeanor. And for me, it was like, okay, that's what a man is supposed to be, right? It really shaped that perspective in my mind, paired with, I'm listening to rap and hip hop, and all they're singing about is drugs, sex, money, what they perceive a woman is supposed to be. And so all these different negative connotations filling my mind just brainwashed me, essentially. It conditioned
Mm-hmm.
my mind and my belief systems to really become this hardened version of myself. And long story short, because of those ideas, I became very promiscuous. I went after men that I saw as being very dominant and controlling and powerful, which led me down a path of being abused, being raped, being just taken advantage of, and falling into and drugs and alcohol and just that whole world. It spiraled very quickly. One comes with another. It really does, when you don't have necessarily the right guidance and perspective. So the rest was history.
Wow. So, what led you out of that world that you thought was so normal, so everyday? You saw people living this life, being hurt, being abused, and you thought this was just life. What
Yeah.
led you out of it? And so, to where you are, not where you are today, but just led you out so that you can see that, okay, that is not what
Yeah.
life is all about.
Yeah. Amen. Great question. I remember, even just to backtrack for a minute leading up to that question, I remember being like 9 or 10 years old, and a lot of these people I was exposed to, they were like older teenagers. I was running the streets with them and things like that late at night, and I would observe them, and they were kind and they were good-hearted people. They would have fun and they were laughing and joyful one minute, and then the next minute, this guy would be punching out his girlfriend on the side of the street. And I remember, even from a very young age, analyzing these behaviors and being like, how does somebody that I can see that where their heart is, I can see they're not a monster, what causes somebody to behave like that? And so I started from a very young age analyzing human behavior and the psychology of things. And it was, part of a survival mentality, but it was also just this fascination and this eagerness to just understand what makes people do the things they do. Um, so fast forward, I already had this kind of foundation of analyzing those types of things in my life. And then, years later, after just one trauma and torment after another, I was exhausted.
Mhm.
I was about 19 years old. I had just come to Barrie with one of my ex-boyfriends. He beat me up pretty bad. It was a very, very traumatic experience. And I talk about all these things very personally in my book as well.
Mhm.
But I remember coming to this place. I was literally curled up naked on the floor after he just ripped me out of the shower and dragged me and was screaming at me. threatening me and all these things. And I remember just laying there being like, no one's coming to save me.
Oh.
Waiting for this moment for somebody to just come, this knight in shining armor, this, I knew it wasn't my mom. I knew it wasn't my dad. So I was waiting for this man, fairy tales to just come and sweep me away from all the pain. And it hit me in that moment, like, Sasha, nobody's coming to save you. You need to get up and save yourself. And so that day I packed all my stuff. I was with this guy for 3 years. He was in and out of jail for beating me up and drugs and all these different things. And I packed my stuff and I left. And I thought because I chose to leave that everything was going to change. And it didn't hit me until years later that just because I removed myself from that situation didn't mean that anything would be different, because my mentality was still the same. I still had the same ideas of myself, of the world. I was still surrounding myself with the same people. And to answer your question now specifically, it took somebody coming into my life, and for the first time, somebody that I looked up to, that I saw had a good head on their shoulders and was doing well, to start building me up. I'd never been built up. Not from the time I was really small. Like my mom, she fed into me a lot. Like she spent a lot of time nurturing me and loving me. But she was a single mom. She had 3 kids. She was overwhelmed. She was struggling with her own mental health issues. Over time, it just became a battle. And so when this person came into my life, and I remember him looking at me and looking at my life. And, at this point in my life, I'm waking up and I'm sniffing a line of cocaine before I'm doing anything, like to even get through the day. And I remember him looking at me and being like, why are you living like this? Like, what are you doing? And I gave him my whole sob story. Well, my parents kicked me out and I've been on my own since I was 14, and poor me, and this guy beat me up and that person did this. And I remember him just looking at me, and it felt very cold at the time, but I needed it. I remember looking at him and being like, or him looking at me and being like, okay, what are you going to do about it? And it was like, poof, conviction. Like, I'm victimizing myself by feeling sorry for myself and expecting that somebody's just going to come fix it. Right. And I didn't realize I was still doing that. So he just spent so much time building me up. He's like, listen, you are smart. You are worthy. You are capable of so much more than this. Like, he pushed me and challenged me. And what it did is it started to change the way I thought. The way I thought about myself, the way I thought about what was possible. I started to think a little bit bigger. And the first thing that hit me was, I need to surround myself with different people. Like, I don't know how I'm going to change. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this lifestyle, but I know I can't live like this anymore. I'm just doing drugs every day. I'm partying. I have no ambition, no goals. I'm lonely. I'm depressed. I'm full of anxiety. It was just, it was torture. It really was. And I was numbing myself and just distracting myself to get through the days. But when I was alone with myself, then I had to face the reality of what things were, and that was not pretty for me. So, that's ultimately what did it. So I decided to go to college and to just, start surrounding myself with different people. And that was a whole other journey in itself. But really, it took somebody planting seeds of showing me who I was beyond my circumstances, that I was greater than the life that I was living.
Do you remember a shift happening inside of you?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
You said so many great things, like surround yourself with good people. And I remember when I started to think differently of myself and to want more and to want to push the greatness out of me, because I felt that I could do things, and people always told me that, you can do great things. You have the ability to do great things. But I remember it's when I started to surround myself with quality people that I started to see myself as someone worthy of people being around. Did you feel that shift in you, and how did you manage that?
I did, to an extent. I think that was a much longer journey for me. For me, it started with, okay, I just need to get away from drugs.
Yes.
And I didn't know anybody that didn't do drugs. Like, if I met somebody that didn't do drugs, I was like, you're a loser. Like, that was just cool to me. I was a teenager. It was the norm. That's what I grew up around, addiction and that kind of lifestyle. But when I went to college, I struggled a lot because my mind was focused on growing, which was great, and that's what I needed. It took me away from focusing on drugs and the party life and everything else. So I did get clean from drugs during that period of time. But being around people that I saw as being more stable and better off, I still felt very inferior. So I had a hard time fitting in with a lot of people in college. I still had this, like, I'm a baddie, like all these people were goody goods, and I'm just like, I'm the street girl over here. So there was still a disconnect, and it did take time to overcome that. Like, when something's ingrained in you so deeply for so long, sometimes it's not as easy as just a switch going off, right? But it was a process, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the important thing is, you, like you said, you still saw people like, oh my God, these people are so weird because they're so different from what you thought was normal. And it's not just that you were thought that, you grew up around these things. And what we grow up with is always what we think is the norm. I've spoken to so many people that have lived some really traumatic lives, and they thought it was normal because it was a part of their everyday life.
Yeah.
So for you to look at people in college and be like, these people, even though you started to shift and wanted to learn and wanted more and wanted to design a new path, you still it was part of the fabric that created you,
Yeah,
so
it
you
was.
still judge.
No, that was a great point, actually. Very, very good point. And I remember, like, because I grew up also in a very small town, so it's not even like it was just the people that I was in a small circle with. It was like everybody in that town that for the most part, had the same mentality, right? It was a
Wow.
very like ghetto hood, like almost gang mentality,
Mm-hmm.
just very toxic. And so I remember being around different people and be like, what? Like, not everybody's the same. Like, how are these, like, it was just mind blowing. It was like a whole new world. I was like, whoa, people are different. Like, who thinks like this? So
Wow.
it started to expand the way that I thought as well.
Wow, wow. You know, it's so important to have a growth mindset, but that growth mindset was instilled in you because someone spoke life into you
Yeah.
and said you can be different. You know, the one of the things that I realize that people don't do, they don't take accountability for their future.
Yeah.
They think that whatever happened in their past is how it's going to be. Whatever happened in the past is a prescription for your future. It's a design for how you will live. But no,
Yeah.
there are three great A's that will help us to designing a new path. And one of them is adulthood.
Hmm.
You are no longer a child, and you are responsible for the decisions that you make and for the future that you want to design.
Amen.
Adulthood is one of the great contributors to our success because you can choose now, where do I want to take this despite what happened to me. Like your friend said, he was like, okay, so now what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know. And then there's the awareness. You are an adult, but now it's being put into your mind, into it's now come to your awareness that, what, I can do something about this. You know, are you sure? Because I've lived this life and nothing good comes from where I come from. And then, you know, achievements. What achievements do you want? Now that you have the awareness that your life can be different, what can you achieve?
Yeah,
You
amen.
know, it's adulthood awareness and what can I achieve? And
Yeah,
you've done that. You said, okay, I'm now an adult. What can I do? I'm going to get an education.
yeah,
And then when you started to get your education, you were like, you know, what else do I want to become?
yeah.
You know? And what did you set as your goal at that time to become?
So it's funny. At that time, um, I still didn't have a goal. My,
Mm,
I mean, I did, but you know what? I shouldn't say that. I did. It was a very small-minded goal at that time, which
okay.
was what I needed. But
But
my
it was
goal,
big for you at the time.
it was, you know, and I
Yeah.
shouldn't undermine it. You're right.
Yeah.
It
It
was
brought you to where you are
done.
today.
It did. You're right. It was
Amen.
one of those pivots that brought me to
Mm-hmm.
that transformation. But my goal at that time was just to get away from the lifestyle that I knew and to open myself to something greater.
Yes.
And that it did happen. It did happen. And you, something I just wanted to touch on. I thought it was amazing that you just the adulthood, the awareness, and the achievements. Those are just amazing.
Three A's. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, And I think when you said the adulthood, the thing that got put onto my heart was, we get often to this point where, we're like, okay, you were a child and then all of a sudden you're adult, so figure it out. And when we don't have the proper guidance and nurturing and upbringing that has laid a foundation for us, it can only go one of two ways. It really can. Like, either we take accountability and we recognize what it was and we realize, what, and we need to forgive our parents or whoever it was for, not doing what maybe they didn't know how to do. Yeah. Or we fall into a victim state where we're like, well, I didn't have this, so the world owes me and poor me. And I was in that mindset for a while, like, oh, well, everybody needs to feel sorry for me. And it was, it's embarrassing now to think back, but I didn't know anything different. It was just the default, right? So I just want to encourage, anybody who may be listening to this that might still be in that space of feeling, really, it's entitlement. It's entitlement. You're responsible for the decisions that you make, period. Whatever happened in your past, maybe it wasn't your fault. We're not, it's not our fault what happens to us. Often we're contributors to those things, not always. But we have to make a decision at some point to say, okay, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to learn? How am I going to grow? How am I going to take the lessons and move on from this without the resentment and the guilt and the victimization?
Yes. When you get to adulthood, you have to make that decision. Like you said, am I going to forgive or hold on?
Yes.
And holding on to resentment, holding on to whatever it is that you really have the right to be mad about these things that happen. So no one's taking that away from you. Yes, you have the right to be mad about all the things that you experienced that were not good for you, that that hurt you, your pain. But not because you have a right to be mad about them doesn't mean you don't deserve a great future.
Yeah, amen, and we block ourselves. And I think the biggest thing too, and I talk about this, I believe in my first book. Just because we forgive somebody and we let go doesn't mean that we're saying they're right and I'm wrong. But holding on to that, holding on to that anger and that pain, and I can't remember who said this, if it was like Buddha or something like that, but I'm sure there's many references, but holding on to that pain and anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It makes no sense. It is unforgiveness. We don't realize how much it blocks so much blessing in our lives. And it's the greatest thing we can do for ourselves is to forgive other people. Truly.
Yes, because at the moment when you decide, because it's your decision, when you decide to be forgiven and say, you know what, that doesn't mean I'm saying that they're right.
Yes.
It means I'm saying I deserve the light. I deserve goodness. I deserve greatness. I deserve everything, because that unforgiveness is like an anchor and it holds you down.
Yes, yeah.
So anything you want in life is so hard to achieve because you have an anchor holding you back from trying to get to the highest self, to your highest self. And so, once you say, you know what, I'm going to forgive this person, doesn't mean that they're right, but I'm going to reach my highest potential. And it's like immediately you cut that anchor and you are now released and you go as high as you can take yourself. Because it's what you put inside of you that makes you grow. It's the learning, the quality people that you surround yourself with, the desire to speak positively into others. Those things bring you up and elevate you. And so now one day you'll become the highest person that you can be. And it's, the best version of yourself, so to speak.
And it can sound so simple, like, oh, just forgive, just find the forgiveness, and it's really simple, but it's not easy, and especially that was something I had to come to terms with writing this book too. Like, writing this book was very, very traumatic for me because I literally relived down to every detail, the abuse, the rape, the terrible experiences, and it brought a lot up for me. But one thing I realized in that, as I was reflecting, and I know God's hand was upon me as I did that, is He showed me something very, very powerful that I share with all my clients, anybody that I'm trying to, teach about forgiveness. The biggest thing that you can do in order to forgive, and it takes it takes having to make the decision consciously to do this, but is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. We don't know, no matter how terrible somebody has treated you, no matter what they have done, it was never about you. Never ever was it about you. That person is battling their own demons. They had their own traumas. Maybe it was, something from their upbringing, and it doesn't excuse their behaviors. But when you can understand that people just act as a reaction to their emotions, to their beliefs, to the way that they're conditioned, you realize that we're different, but we're all the same. Because I personally know, and I had to take accountability when I was writing this book. I had to look at a lot of things and be like, you know what? I hurt a lot of people. I lied, I manipulated, I was vengeful, I was spiteful, I did so many terrible things. But that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I was doing the best I could with what I knew. I was reacting, I was emotional, I was angry, I was all these things. And that didn't define me. So how can I be somebody to cast a stone, right? Like he who was without sin cast the first stone. How can I judge this person for doing something just because, it hurt me when I've done things to hurt other people too? What makes me any better? One sin is no greater than the other. It really isn't.
So you had to decide to forgive yourself also.
Yes.
Oh, because a lot of times too, because hurt people, and we have, we have been on that path where we're hurting others, but sometimes you're not even aware that you're hurting. Yes, sometimes you are being manipulative, and sometimes you do know what you're doing, but sometimes you're not even aware that what you're doing is hurtful because it was done to you. And so it feels like, well, that's life.
Yeah.
So you have to now, once you're aware, you're in the awareness. Now you have to be like, oh my God, I'm adult now, and I'm aware that this is what I've done has been some really hurtful things. Can I forgive myself so I can also move on? Because forgiving others will free that anchor, but then there's that anchor of not forgiving yourself, holding you back from becoming the highest version of yourself.
Absolutely. And shame and guilt, they're not of God. They're not of God. God never wants us to sit in those things. We're not perfect. We live in a fallen world, and we're exposed to painful things and deception and sin from the time we're born. So we can't expect ourselves or anybody else to be perfect. But I think the biggest thing in forgiving yourself is learning and growing. You can't forgive yourself if you continue to do the same things and make the same mistakes over and over. Then you're just going to define yourself as being that. But just recognize if you're convicted of something, if you're not okay with a certain behavior or action, number one, go apologize. Take accountability. There is no shame in that. Like writing this book, I can't tell you how many people I wrote letters and called to just apologize, and it liberated something. I took accountability. It can be very confronting and vulnerable. It is to take accountability, but I changed through that process. I no longer, because I saw the way I was behaving, when those behaviors or those feelings come up, I'm like, whoa, nope, that's not me. I'm not going down that road again. Right. And eventually you stop it so much, you go down a different road. You stop going down that same road. Right.
Yes. So, wow, you are in the achievement stage of your life. What have you achieved now that you have become, responsible, taken responsibility and say, I want to learn more. I want to be around quality people. I want to give more to the world. I want to be of service. I want to be used. What have you achieved, and what are some things that you aspire to achieve?
Yeah. Honestly, and I can't take any of the glory for it. It's all God, and shown me that over and over and over, that every good thing that has happened to me, everything that I've accomplished and achieved, his hand has been upon me, and all those things. I could go on about all the amazing things that I've achieved over, since that time, from, becoming a best-selling author to making substantial amounts of money through a business that I built. It helped be able to help people change their lives, speaking on a virtual platform with the #1 motivational speaker in the world. Like the list, it really does go on and on. But to be honest, there was a very valuable lesson I have learned going down that path of achievement as well. And that's actually what my second book is about. So I'm going to be excited to share that as well, because a wise man told me not so long ago that there are 3 paths in life. There's the bad path, there's the good path, and there's the right path. And on the
Mm.
bad path, you look down it, and you can tell it's bad. You can tell it's painful. You can tell it's deception, but it looks exciting. It looks enticing and thrilling. So you're like, if you're someone like me, you're like, I'm going down that path anyways. Right?
Yes.
And it's suffering and it's pain. And many people get stuck on that path. And that is what my first book, Chasing Love, is about. It's the bad path. And then there's the good path. And you look down it and it looks bright and it looks fun and it looks exciting. And you're like, oh, nothing can go wrong down this path. And you walk down it and, you know, you're focused on your purpose and your achievements and, you know, all these goals and things that we're being fed, you know, in this world. But that's also a path of deception in itself. And it will never bring true fulfillment. There is only one path that brings true fulfillment, and that is a path of walking with God and choosing
Amen.
to let God lead you and to guide you. Because you can, the biggest lesson I've learned since writing this book, and this is what my second book is about. So I guess I'm going to do like a little shout out and promo for that one.
That's right. It's coming, guys.
It is, yes. But the biggest thing that I've learned since that time is, and just back up for 1 second, just to kind of build up to what I'm about to say, but I was being victimized and living on this bad path. I had no sense of power over my life. I felt like everybody was using me and hurting me and controlling me. So when I found out that I could write my own story and take control over my own life, I was like, woo, okay, sense of power and control for the first time in my life. And I ran with that. And I mastered it. I really mastered. I mastered my mind. I mastered my emotions. I had, I would say, almost full control over everything in my life. And that is an absolute path of deception, because we're looking for God in that path. And I realized, and God showed me, and this is what I will talk about in my second book, he showed me, is that we don't know what we want. We don't know what we need. We think we know, but it changes all the time. It changes as we grow. It changes as our needs and our values grow. It changes all the time. But God created us. He knows our hearts better than, and our desires better than we know ourselves. And when we surrender and we let go and we just say, God, I'm yours. Use me. Where do you want me? And we just, you know, the Bible says, seek first the kingdom of heaven and all things will be added to you. And when I made that decision, everything in my life just skyrocketed, because when I was in control and I had all these achievements and I was doing amazing, I was doing all these big things, I had the recognition, I had the praise, I had the glory, I was feeling, it was fueling my pride, and it felt good. And I didn't even realize it was my pride. I was just like, oh, well, like I have value, you know, I have control. It was leading me so far away from God that there was no fulfillment. It was just another form of deception. No, I wasn't on drugs and struggling in all those areas, but there was still a void inside of me that I was always chasing the next high, always chasing the next achievement, always I was being identified by my roles and my actions and my achievements. And that's when God intervened in my life and revealed this to me. And so at that time, I surrendered my life to God. And I said, God, I only want what you have from me. If it's not of you, I don't want it. I don't care about what I want anymore, because I know your plan for me is greater. And that's a hard thing to do, because we think we know what we want. And the moment I did that, God just blessed me with everything I had been praying for my entire life.
Wow. You let go.
I let go. Yeah.
You surrendered. You know, it's so funny that we don't really use the Bible how it's intended as a guide for our lives, because the Bible clearly gives us step by step on how to achieve, you know, what we want in life.
Anything.
And if we just take the Bible, like you just said, the Bible said, you know, all, if seek first the kingdom of God, and then all things will be added. All the things that you want will be added unto you. And if we just take that at face value and just say, okay, I'm going to test you, God. I'm going to seek first the kingdom of heaven. And you said it, not me, it's your word. So let me see if you're going to give me everything out.
Exactly.
But if you test him, you'll see that he's always God, always in charge, always has been and always will be. And he's in charge of your life, even when the things weren't going how you wanted it to go. He was still in charge. And so now that you have all this experience and you realize that he's really in charge, why not surrender? Okay, look at God. And now you have the achievements that your heart so desire, you know, congratulations. And congratulations on, I heard it is a book, another book coming, guys.
Yeah.
There's another book coming.
Yes,
And I
another.
know you're a prolific writer. Oh my goodness. I think your first book was over 100,000 words before the editors got to it. It was like, we're going to take some things out. So I know it was about 100,000 words at least
Yeah.
when you, at publishing. But guys, this woman is a prolific writer. And let me tell you something. The story is so, it just, the path was amazing to see what you've gone through, and then amazing to see how God led you out.
Mm.
You have to get the book. You can get it where, Sasha?
Just on Amazon right now. That's the best place to get it. Like I was kind of telling you before we started talking here, the Lord did step in and tell me to take a step back a little bit.
Yes.
And I believe it's until I get my second book out. And I think that's the reason for that, Denise, is because people who know me know where I'm at now, and they can,
Yes.
they can take this book and be like, wow, that's amazing. But the way this first book ends off, it's not really showing what happened on the other side. So the second
Yes.
book is more of a journey into, all the amazing things that have happened since.
Yes.
When that book comes out, I'm going to be more diligent in promoting it all together. But you can
Yes.
find it on Amazon. Chasing
Yes.
Love, A Story of Self-Sabotage by Sasha Cressman.
Yes.
And the second book should be soon to follow.
Trust me, if the second book is anything like the first, it will be a bestseller also.
Thank you.
And it will bless people.
Amen.
So this is, I mean, I just want to hear a little bit about how your daily habits help you with this new person that you are today.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that scripture came up because for the last year, the biggest thing that I do is I seek God first before anything. I wake up in the morning, I pray. I spend an hour in prayer and
Amen.
word every single day, and worshiping Him. Worship, prayer, and reading His Word. Because when you're rooted in God's promises for your life and His Word, it's a lot more difficult to go astray when you know what God's plan is for you. And I don't have plans for myself anymore. I do not make plans for myself. I have desires, I have things that I want, but it's God's plan every day. It's just, God, use me. What do you want me? And when I do that, and it's the same for everybody, when we do that, the most amazing things happen. We're used to serve other people. We're used to bless other people. And then God blesses us in return, because the more we give, the more God will bless us as well. That's just, reciprocity and how it works. So, obviously I have my self-care and all these, things I do for myself. But the biggest thing is just keeping God first and foremost, always.
Yes, beautiful. Now, I have 3 questions that I love to ask all of my guests before they go, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on these 3 questions. So, number 1, what's one bold promise that you can share with the audience?
A bold promise.
Mm-hmm.
I think the boldest promise that I can make that is valuable is, I promise that God's plan for your life is far greater than any plan you could ever have for yourself. And it's empowering to write your own story, but there is an anointing that comes with living God's story for you. And there's nothing
Wow.
like it.
You heard that, guys? That's a beautiful promise that
Mhm.
God's plan for you is bigger than anything that you can dream of for yourself. I love that. And I believe that because I remember when I was growing up, the things that I wanted, the things that I was desiring, have nothing on what God has gifted me with and the things that God has for me in the future. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Amen.
just turn it over to Jesus, okay?
Yes, exactly.
What's a bold statement you can share with your audience that will cause a paradigm shift?
It's funny when you hearing this idea of paradigm shift, because I've been teaching paradigm shifts to my clients for years now, and it's all about the mind and the will and the emotions. That's the soul
Yes.
level. But true shifts come from our spirit, and there's only one way for that to happen, and it's not to say that shifts can't happen through our mind, and they do absolutely. But the thing that is going to create the most change and the most lasting, drastic change in your life. And I have to point everything back to God and give Him all the glory, but it's to invite God into your life. The
Mm-hmm.
moment you invite God into your life, like he loves you so much, so much. No matter if you've been walking with him, no matter if you even believe in him, his hand has been upon your life. And when you choose to, and here's the thing, people think, oh, God is sovereign, he's just always in control. He has control, but he's not in control. We have to
Yes.
invite him in. God is a gentleman and he does not go with
Mm.
and so until you welcome him in, he is not leading your life. He can speak to you and place things in your path and all these things, but you're not in relationship with him unless you invite him into your heart. And when
Mm.
you do that, everything changes. Your world will change, your mentality, your heart, your life, everything will change. And it's not by your strength, it's by his.
Oh my goodness, that's such a great point that until you invite him in, you will be struggling. All the things that you want will not happen because he's in charge. He's sitting on the outside waiting for you to say, "Hey, um, I've done it all. Now I'm giving it up to you." And he's not even waiting for us to try it. He wants us to invite him in as early on as possible so that you can live the best version of yourself as soon as possible.
That's right.
And you don't have to go through the hardships. You don't have to go to the heartaches. But it doesn't mean that because you're going through heartache and hardship that God is not a part of your life. Because who God loves and who, you know, believes in God, certainly you will have trials and tribulations because, the devil, he fights everything that is of God. So if
Yeah.
you are of God, yes, you will see some trials and you will see some tribulations, but you just invite him in and he will, all of the things that you're going through, it will be like a stepping stone for your future success, for the
Amen.
desires of
Amen.
your hearts, for the love that you want, for the service that you want to give, for all the things that you so desire. You can use the things that you've gone through as a stepping stone. And it doesn't mean that God wanted those things to happen to you, my dear. It just means that now that even though these things happen to you, look how God is going to use that. And
Yes.
now you're going to climb and be on top of the world
Amen.
because you can use those things that have been there to harm you, to hurt you or harm you as a stepping stone for your success. Now, what's a bold move that you'd like to make in the future? Oh, I'm excited.
It's funny, like I was just saying, it's like there's a lot of things that I know I want to do in this world. Um, but I don't want it unless it's what God wants me to do. The biggest move I want to make is just to be used by God however he wants to use me.
Yes.
And to so the boldest move that I can make in myself is to
Mhm.
just listen, to lean in, to trust and to obey him so that he can use me and to serve in the ways that he wants me to, not in the ways that I see fit, because it's not about I don't know what's right. I don't know what's best. Only he does. So if I can be used even in the smallest amount to build his kingdom, then that's the boldest thing that I can do.
Oh, to God be all the glory. Thank you so much for coming. Please tell the people how they can connect with you because everybody's listening to this now is like, oh my God, who is this? I gotta, get to know her some more. How can the audience connect with you more?
Yeah, yeah. I don't have. I'm not on a whole lot of platforms on social media anymore, but Facebook Sasha Cressman and Instagram also Sasha Cressman. I know it says Peril on here, but I did just get married in November. Um,
Congratulations!
thank you. So my last name is now Cressman, Cressman. So feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to connect with new people.
That's a bold move you made, Sasha. Congratulations. And
Thank
when
you.
did that happen?
November 3rd.
Oh my goodness.
And let me just
Congratulations.
like point out the glory in this amazing. So January, I decided to fully just surrender to God. I was in
Mm-hmm.
just long story short, I was in a very toxic relationship at the time, and
Uh-huh.
I realized it was like I thought it was what I wanted, and I surrendered and I said, God, I don't know what I want. I want the man in life that you have for me. 3 weeks later, he showed me the man he had for me.
Mm-hmm.
6 months later, we were engaged, and
Oh
4 months
wow.
after that, we were married.
Oh
And now we have
wow.
a child on the way, and it has just
Oh
been
my goodness.
absolutely amazing.
So it was a total surrender.
Total.
The
Yes.
power of surrender. I mean, we can go on for days about
I
the power of
know.
surrender,
Yeah.
because just surrendering, you're saying it's all in your hands, Father.
Yes.
And he will take you 3 weeks later. And it probably, you needed that 3 weeks to uncover the veil that was, over you.
Totally.
And 3 weeks later, he introduced you to the man of his choice
Yes.
for your life.
Which was
And
far greater than everything I ever thought I wanted, and was an answer to every prayer I had prayed from the time I was a child that I even forgot about.
oh wow.
Yes.
Oh wow. Look at God.
God is
Okay.
good.
Look at God. I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you for coming here and sharing your story and to share your achievements and how God is planning to lead you in the future and to move you to serve others. And I'm grateful that I'm a part of your life. I'm a part of this story. I'm a part of this growth.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for trusting me and for the support. And I want to say big up to Tanya Powell, because she was the one who was like, you know what, you must contact this girl. She's going to contact you. You must talk to her and help her get this book out, because she heard your story before I did, and she thought the world is going to be different after. And so we don't know who God is going to put in our lives that's going to help us get to the next level. So just be obedient and just surrender, because he has a plan for you. It's not just good for me. He doesn't just love me, he doesn't just love Sasha. God loves you just as much as he loves us.
He does.
So whatever your heart's desire is, trust me, it will come true if you surrender to him, because he loves you so much. And if he did it for us, he will certainly do it for you. If you need help to get out of the self-sabotaging relationship that you're in, or to get out of the powerless mindset that you have cultivated, then send me an email, authordnicholson@gmail.com. And if you have a story that you would like to share and you want to write a book, you want to get it out of your head and onto paper, send me an email, authordnicholson@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Sasha, for coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And let me just shout you out real quick, Denise. I mean, if there's a story you want to get out of your head and onto paper, this is your woman. Oh, this way. This is your woman right here. She made the entire process just so enjoyable and fantastic and smooth. And I just cannot imagine having done it without her. So shout out to you, Denise. Thank you so much for everything. I love and appreciate you.
God bless you. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the next book. Okay. But guys, go out there and support. Get this book. It's amazing. And Sasha put that book up one more time so that people can see Chasing Love. Maybe you're not chasing love, but maybe you can learn from the lessons that she had put in this book. And the message is good. The message is clear. Seek God first, and he'll give you the world. Okay? Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.